10th of May 2023. This is one of those Warrafak moments again, and I'm going to talk about Eskom again. Yesterday I did one in Afrikaans, and there's a lot of comments and I got a lot of messages about that Briekmerke. But there is things going on with Eskom that we, the ordinary people, need to take note of. There are things that doesn't make sense. We get situations where the load shedding schedules rapidly changes and you cannot plan. But the reality is that there's something going on the generation side. And I wouldn't say on the generation side per se, more on the distribution side. There's agendas. There has been a lot of reports on the levels of criminality. Last night again I saw an article where there was strong evidence of syndicates interfering with the coal delivery to power stations. We have this situation of the integration of the solar generators into the networks, which there is something wrong there. I don't know how they try and explain it, but it is for sure that the private homeowners have installed a hell of a lot of solar power. And although they may not be contributing to the grid, they reduce the demand from the grid. But that is not reflected in the levels of load shedding. I have a suspicion that there's one political faction is playing this load shedding thing very carefully, because it is frustrating the whole population. And for the first time since '94, we see ordinary people openly accusing the ANC, and the ANC is taking a lot of heat for the load shedding, and the bulk of the population places the load shedding on the doorstep of the ANC. The ANC is losing support, everybody knows that, but we also know that the ANC is renowned for underhand dealing. Now, my theory is that they're going to keep the population on an edge with the load shedding until around about February, March next year. And then all of a sudden there's going to be a hell of a change, and the load shedding is going to disappear or being severely reduced, and they're going to take credit for it. The ANC is going to take credit for it. That is one theory. There's another theory, and that is that they're driving the population to these levels of frustration about the power because they've got a devious plan with the power network and the generation fleet. And when they put that proposal on the table, it will come with a promise that load shedding is gone, and the people is going to accept that. They'll accept anything just to get rid of the load shedding. That is, all of these are theories. But there's another thing that you have to keep in mind. As I've mentioned in my Skidmarks, in my Briekmerke yesterday, only one importer that I am aware of, and is not the biggest one in the country, is selling 45,000 panels per month. Now you can go and work out the VAT on that, and then you must see that amount, that VAT, as extra income for the government. Because this government is running into trouble with finances. Now just try and imagine all of the solar equipment sold monthly, what the VAT amount is involved there. Then add to that the volumes of diesel that the generators are consuming. And I'm not talking about the Eskom generators, I'm talking about the private generators that they are consuming to generate power. And there's a hell of a lot of money in that there as well. Then you also have generator sales and things like that. These things all generate huge amounts of VAT. So it's basically a tax by stealth. So they're making money out of it. And I don't know, the problems that we have is all the lies that are being fed to us. Nobody is honest. Nobody sits down and place it on the table and say, okay guys, this is the situation, here are the plants, these are the different problems at every plant. Nobody does that. It's always these collective nouns that are being used and vague references to this and that. And then this Minister of Electricity, he pops out and he makes a statement that he has seen no corruption at Eskom. What nonsense is that? I cannot understand how it is possible that there's not a single decent journalist that is willing to invest the energy and time and get behind the real thing that is going on at Eskom. This Andre de Ruyter thing is another story. I am not so sure what the grand plan is around him. Trust me, he's a player. He comes from Nampak, and at Nampak, his history at Nampak is there for you to go and look up. But that is where his contact with Tito Mboweni comes from. And I am convinced that it was that relationship with Tito Mboweni that got him into the position at Eskom. Now, there's a lot of talks about blackouts, total blackouts and so forth, and I've talked about it yesterday. The reality is, if South Africa hits a total blackout, people must just understand everything is gone. There will be no communications, there will be no networks, there will be no cell phones, there will be no banking, there will be no remote banking, there will be no ATMs. Nothing is going to work. And there are industry specialists that reckon it could take up to 6 weeks, maybe 2 months, to get the grid back up. Now, from my investigations and from what the guys at Solidarity are saying, I am not so sure that we will really hit a blackout, because a blackout will wipe everything out. It will wipe the government out. It's going to wipe billions of the wealth of the oligarchs. So, and we have this situation that Eskom has reserves that is not being implemented. There is, I think, 7 units that is not operating due to some environmental bullshit story. Bring those things back and it will make a big difference. I don't know what us as ordinary citizens can really do. But we have to be aware of the fact that there is foul play at Eskom. Our load shedding nightmares are not purely technical. And that is my opinion. And we have to ask ourselves, what is the grand plan here? I have said it. My belief is that Ramaphosa's role is to get as much of the critical state assets into the hands of the oligarchs, and then they're going to collapse the republic. Now, I am of the opinion we must collapse the republic now and break it into 10, 12, 14 pieces. That will take a lot of the power away from these dark players, because they will then have a problem to control everything, because there is regions where they will have very little say. That is what, as I see it, the only option for our future. This single Republic of South Africa is not going to make it. And there are too much highly technical requirements to keep a country like this operating. And the ANC, those that are in charge today, does not have the IQ to do it. So, to conclude, there is something sinister behind the load shedding. It is not purely technical. There is political plans there. There's obviously criminal plans there. And then there is some other ideological plans there. Think about it. Ask yourself questions. That's all you have to do. Question these things. Don't just accept things. The media, the mainstream media in South Africa cannot be trusted. They cannot be trusted. They feed you what the cabal wants you to hear. And that is it. And the nightmare situation with the energy is, this is a global thing. This is not only in South Africa. So the real masters of the plan sits very high up. And they're doing this to a lot of nations. The Russians and the Chinese are helping some countries now to get out of their energy issues. And the West hates them for that. But there's one thing that has been bothering me for a long time. At a stage, the Chinese were willing to stake $500 million. I'm not sure if it was $500 million or 500 million rands into Eskom. And it was apparently a signed deal. And then when the date came that they had to pay, they refused to pay and they cancelled the agreement because they were not comfortable with the levels of corruption involved in Eskom. And now I've heard rumors that the Chinese are again in negotiations around the electricity. In my opinion, it will be a good thing they maybe sell the whole damn Eskom to the Chinese, because then it will work. Or maybe the Russians, or maybe a combination between the Chinese and the Russians. But South Africa, the South African population, has been very effectively cut into factions, and all the factions are fighting with one another, and they don't take note of the referee and the third referees that are sitting there up in the cubicles. That is unfortunately something that this cabal do well. So people need to think about this, look at yourself, look at your neighbor, and then realize that both of you has got the same enemy. And on that note, please give me a like and a subscribe and share the thing. Thank you for your support.